Hello, hello, welcome to Mindset to Results. Today, our guest is amazing Carol Smaldina. She is a psychotherapist with the experience of 35 years, and also she is an author. Hi, Carol.
Hi.
Today, we will speak about a very interesting topic which you suggested. Why to knowing all parts about yourself. Yes, why to knowing everything about yourself is so essential for success. And thank you so much for being guest on our podcast.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, about your journey, how maybe you grew through your practice as a psychotherapist, and why you do what you do.
Why do I do what I do? Well, I think when I was little, things were not so easy for me. I mean, emotionally, I'm talking, and it's pretty common for people who have had some trauma or and difficult times to want to help other people. And sometimes we do it because we want to heal ourselves. And so it's very important that we know as much as we can about ourselves because if we don't, we may repeat what happened in our own past with our patients. We may need them too much. We may need them like our parents needed us, and we have to take care of ourselves so we can grow into who we are so that we can help people and we don't have to exploit them or do things to keep them not well, if that makes any sense.
And yes, what you said is that you went through some challenges when you were small, and
Hmm.
uh, this knowledge and experience which you gain in life, you want to share with people so they wouldn't go through these challenges, or if they are in some challenges, they know how to come out of them.
Yeah, and you asked me um, how I I learned from, I think, how I learned from my work as well. And I think the reason I'm thinking that it's important to know all the parts of ourselves is because when I started, I very much wanted to be a good person, and I thought of myself as a good person. I mean, I wanted to be that. And then I worked in a treatment center where the children had been abused. And just like what I said before, if you don't know about abuse, you don't know the feelings, you can do that to other people. So the way they coped was to try to abuse the staff. And let's say I worked with a boy, well, let's say I really did work with a boy who had been very abused and had a lot of violence in his family, and he was very provocative. And all the things I thought I was going to be helpful to him with did not work at all. It's like I said, well, we need to do this so we can do that. And he would just, am I allowed to curse? Um, or no, better not.
I even don't know. If my daughter would listen to this podcast, she would not like that.
Okay. So he said, uh, he just got furious at me. And he said, who the hell cares about what you have to say? So let's just say, and he said worse than that. But
Mm.
um, what happened to me was that I had wanted to be very kind, and I didn't feel kind at all. I felt like I wanted to hurt him. And that alarmed me, that scared me. And I thought, oh my God, I can't do this work because I have this terrible part of me. And then luckily, I had a therapist for me who helped me feel okay about my anger, that it was part of me, again, that it wasn't the whole thing of me, wasn't the whole of me. And I kind of invented a way of working with this boy. I told him, like, instead of trying to outsmart him, I told him that I realized he was smarter than me in this aspect, that, if he was so practiced in making people upset that if I wanted to fight with him, I would lose, and um I could never beat him at his own game because he was so fixated in that. And I basically said, look, I give up. You win. You're like a professional at this. You can make me cry, and you can make me feel crazy, and you can make me angry. Now, so I don't want to even go there with you, like, because you win. But if you want to figure out with me why you have to do this, then I'm here. So that was the beginning of a change, because instead of instead of trying to fight to be powerful, or uh, I I stopped and I acknowledged that he had a lot of power, and so it wasn't about power, it was about whether we could work together. And I think that he saw that I was vulnerable, and I I revealed to him, I guess, that I cared in this way, and that I was willing to admit my weakness. And so that changed things around. That's just one example.
Yeah, this is interesting, of course, how people behave based on self-image and self-worth they have. Yes, because that boy, he didn't even believe that somebody can care about him. Yes,
No.
what he saw in his life, he just thought that everyone just hates him.
Yeah, and so the only thing he had to do was to fight to make other people feel bad. He couldn't show his own vulnerability, his own need, because he didn't, as you say, trust that the other person would care and that it could be safe.
Yes, yeah. So yes, this is really so sad. Yeah, when
Mhm.
children go through this, it is shouldn't be this.
I think though, because of what we're talking about, it's very sad. It is very, very sad. I mean, I, but I'm saying that although I could sit and cry while I read the reports about these children, many of them, they had already been kind of trained to be angry. And so to work with them was to be the recipient of their anger. And it was a conflict because, on the one hand, I wanted to feel bad. And on the other, I could feel angry too. And I had to kind of learn that that was okay, that it wasn't, um, that my anger didn't mean that I was a terrible person. It was a normal response to the fact that now I was being abused.
Yeah, because they don't know anything more than that. This is just what they know. Yeah,
Well,
they,
it's a good coping mechanism, because otherwise they would have to show that they feel so empty and so sad that it's scary for them to feel that, because it feels like, like a pit that would never, um, that they would sink completely. So it was a smart coping mechanism in a way, because they were so scared of sinking that they invented ways to feel powerful. And then you have that they use power over other people. And then I'm going to say, just politically in the US, you have a lot of people too who are on the top of the power, and they had very sad lives. I mean, one in particular, our president, I mean, he had a very sad life. And he, though he did the same thing, he acts like he doesn't need anybody. He doesn't, like, he's not weak at all. And all he thinks about is how he's going to be the best and the biggest, and he's going to make other people feel bad. I mean, he said, I'm just going to say, he said at the UN, I think you probably know this, to all the countries, he said, your countries are going to hell, and my country is great. So, there you have it with somebody who becomes a leader. And then you have the rest of us, the rest of many people who feel intimidated and feel small and scared and feel like they are in trouble. They're going to be in trouble if they don't follow him. So it's a problem that keeps on going if it doesn't stop.
Yeah, so let's get back to our topic. Yes, why it is so important to know so much and all details about yourself is because these patterns which we have, they create everything in our life. Like as that boy who said, he just doesn't believe that he's worth enough, that somebody can even love him or somebody can care about him. And if somebody is kind to him, he thinks that something is wrong with these people. And this is how he just continues to be aggressive because he doesn't even believe that he worth of love. And how we can do this parallel to people who are in business world, who are entrepreneurs or business owners, when they behave with people, as you said, also some politicians. So how can it be, like how can we really understand what is behind this behavior and see the person and separate the person who is by his essence, it is perfect human being, is who can potentially be perfect human being. And those programs which were written on his subconscious mind through repetition and through those events which happened in the past. So how, and also in ourselves, how we can identify those programs which are not good for us, which don't serve us well, and reprogram those, rewrite those programs to be better people.
Well, are you saying how can we cope with people who in business use their power to become bullies? Or are you asking that too?
We can discuss here, we can discuss different topics. Yes, we can start initially from when we see people behavior, yes, which is not nice. And it we have so many cases when people bullying each other at the workplace and at school. So how we can first not react, because as you said, it is very difficult to be kind when person is aggressive. Yes, even if you are totally in control and have very high EQ, but still we are human beings, and it is natural for human beings to feel uh, adequately to the situation. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think one of the issues about knowing different parts of ourselves is that if we know our fear and we know our anger and we know them deeply, they become what's called a signal. We get a signal and we recognize it, and it's like this, uh-oh, this is going to be bad. Uh-oh, this is going to be dangerous. Uh-oh, this is going to be, I'm feeling myself getting angry and potentially getting out of control. And when we recognize those things, we can say, okay, let's stop and have a choice. Do I want to stand up to this person? Do I feel that this person is out of control and kind of dangerous? And so do I want to not react? Or if it's so toxic, an environment, let's say, one can say, do I want to find a way to leave if I can, because it's so triggering. I mean, if somebody is abusive constantly, I think it's too much to ask that we adapt and just become passive and not react, because we become kind of numb and deadened inside. That is not a good solution. I mean, um, one of the things I write about is, I have this book coming out in October with a small press, Dignity Press. I like the name very much, called Vulnerability Protected, Visions of a Dancing Mind. And vulnerability is our kind of nakedness, our weakness, our feeling open. And I think it's too scary to do if we don't have some safety or some protection. So, that's what I write about. It's getting in touch with how we feel, really, but it's also having the safety, whether we have friends or a therapist or tools to practice. So I have this thing that I call the space between clarity and action, because, most people feel that when they know something, if they know something, they have to act on it. And that is kind of a trap, because it doesn't give people the space to evaluate what the options are. So I tell people in my work, just because you know something doesn't mean you have to act immediately. If I'm just going to say, if a woman, it could be a man, but if a person knows that their husband or wife, or, had an affair, let's say, the culture will say, let's say, well, you should leave. You should leave right away. If you found this out, you should leave. But the person may not really want to leave, or it may be complicated, or maybe that person knows the marriage was in trouble and the affair was a sign of that trouble. But in any case, a person is sh should be entitled to the space to evaluate the choices and come to something authentic that is right for them. And I'm sure that has to do with business as well, that we have options. Sometimes we have options that need to be considered, so that we don't kind of obey rules just because, they're habits from the past. We can do something new.
Yes, we know that human beings are habitual. Yes, almost all our behavior is habitual. So usually people just are in the same patterns of thinking. So how understanding themselves can make them to really be thoughtful and understand that there are many different scenarios, not only one which comes from reaction, which immediate reaction.
Well, there's a person in the field who's very famous right now in trauma. His name is Gabor Mate. He's from Hungary, and he was born during World War II. And he talks about authenticity and acceptance as being very important for human beings. And that he says very often we don't have both. So people tend to want to be accepted and they lose their authenticity. Now, if you're authentic and real, you really can evolve and change. You can even change from the habits that you had and from the friends that you have and from the rules that you are used to. But usually it's like it has to come from inside. It usually mostly comes from inside, but sometimes it comes from relationships where, let's say, a husband or wife will say to somebody, to their spouse, listen, if you don't change, I can't stay. Something has to activate the desire to become authentic, to become real. Now, a lot of us are so pressured to appear a certain way that we just kind of go through the motions of life. And so, because we live in cultures where appearance is more important than how people really feel, but once a person starts to feel it's almost like a freedom movement, from inside. It's like a revolution almost, because it's like saying, wait a minute, I'm so tired from acting a certain way. I'm so tired from appearing a certain way. I need to be real. And once that happens, things can really change. But it's like getting in touch with that wish to be free because it's very exhausting to just act the way another person thinks we should act.
Mm. Yes, because nobody teaches uh, in school how to live how you feel, how to do what you believe it is good for you. We are
Well,
so conditioned to be logically to feed yourself to different rules, to different frames, and that people becomes like robots. They
that's
forget.
right. That's right. And, you know, I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned school because I think we, I mean, we don't teach children. Children can learn from almost the very beginning. I mean, obviously not one, two, three, but they can learn about feelings and they can learn that everyone makes mistakes and they can learn uh, that everybody has good and bad and all kinds of feelings. And also, we can learn to respect children. Children very often have very good insights. They can help us. They can help us learn about what they need to learn. I mean, just when I had my children, and my son was 3 years old, he told me that he wasn't ready for nursery school yet, and that he wasn't ready to be left yet, and that he would be in a little while. And it was like, was I supposed to listen to him? Because he was 3. But and I'm going to say that it wasn't easy for me. I went through a lot of stuff about it that I don't need to say here, but that I finally did listen to him. And it was a really good thing, I think. Um, but I think you're right that we don't help kids And let's say we don't have a lot of supports ourselves, because if you say, let's get in touch with our real feelings, well, our real feelings are kind of messy. You know, they're messy, they're chaotic, they're loud, they're full of crying, they're full of, you know, they're moody. And it's like we really need help. So we're not, it's not just that we're not taught to have real feelings, we're not helped when they come out, because when they come out, if they're messy, we get ashamed all over again. Now we're ashamed about how we do it, because the people who give advice, a lot of people who give advice, they do what I call advice from the ceilings. The ceilings, like on top, they act like, and they're very fancy and they make it sound easy. And a lot of us are living in the basements where everything's kind of a mess. And we're not held to know, listen, if you're going to be real, you're probably going to be messy and you're going to need support. And that's okay. That needs to have dignity.
Yes, Carol, I'm totally agree with you that people are not taught to listen to their feelings, and what we usually do, we do suppress their feelings, we do suppress our emotions, and I believe that this is one of the reason why people get sick. Yeah, because the suppressed emotions, they stay, that negative energy accumulates in the body, and this is how people get different diseases, and they get depressed. And we know that depression also leads to disintegration. So, and this is very normal. Like boys, if they cry, want to cry, parents will tell you, why you cry? You are a boy, you are a man. Boy shouldn't cry. Yeah, so and this is just how they get conditioned to hide the emotions, to hide the feelings. And then this is how children grow up and how they become adults. And then when people come, I recently was in one training with Christian Mikkelsen in instant rapid therapy. And we were doing the sessions when people first time in their life allowed themselves to hear those feelings, and those feelings were coming out in a different way, like crying, like somebody were finding in throat, and then suddenly they couldn't speak, they started coughing, like face red, and like different ways, and it was just really. And after that when they process those emotions, and first time in their life allowed to listen to them. Yes, all those emotions have been crying maybe for 20 years, for 30 years, and they will just shut it up down, yeah, like suppressing, and then one first time when they started listening to these emotions, and it was really amazing to see how many people have get release from this, that finally they could get listen to their that emotions, to those feelings, and then they had such a great release. And this is what we have to learn to do. If anything wrong, you feel something inside, right? Like also we had that feeling in our gut, like if something wrong, we hear or even meet somebody, and that person even can speak very well and everything logically feels so good, but our intuition can just cry and say, no, don't do that, don't just do anything with this person, like go away.
But
And
that,
yes, and sometimes we don't listen and we think, no, the person is good, this is how he speaks, he's so kind, and then we can start some business. And then in the business we get it, and then we remember, yeah, I had that feeling, but it is late now, right? Or something.
well,
Oh,
that's what I mean, in a sense, we're saying something very similar, which is that if you know your feelings, if you know a lot of your deepest feelings, then what I said is you can get a signal. So you're using the language of the gut, which is the same thing. It's like you feel a sense, you feel that, uh-oh, this could be trouble. And you're right that very often we don't listen to that. And we listen to the voices outside and we lose ourselves.
Yes, because we learn to think logically, and when our logic doesn't see the facts, why to reject that person or why not to do this or that, we cannot find the reasons, and this is why we choose because we condition to choose what is logically, right? And this is why we do so many mistakes. And of course, when we analyze, like, yes, I had that, so next time I better listen to my intuition when I decide. My daughter is just, she's just perfect in this identifying people. She can meet person and she already feels. And if she can tell me even like, no, I don't like that person. Like, I don't like energy, like what I was feeling. And then I could say, no, this is good, very good person and kind and this and that. And then we can go for some situation and we can know that person more. And then it can be a problem, right? And then my daughter would say, "You see, mommy, I had this from the beginning. I knew that I didn't like this person from the beginning." So she just so sharply can get this, like our intuition picks up those frequency, yeah, because we can communicate not only verbally, mostly we communicate on the conscious level. So our intuition picks something that our ears and eyes don't. Yes.
Right. But the thing is, I mean, you're interested in working in business. So I think what's important to know is that there are some people who have, let's say, a problem or who have, they're control freaks or there's something, and we have an intuition, let's say, that says, uh-oh, this could be trouble. Now, the truth is that it's not always all of that person. Sometimes it's one aspect of that person. So it's like when we see one aspect and we have to work with that person, we have to figure out sort of how to get around that or how to address that, or whether it's possible to address, or whether it's possible to also empathize with that person. Because when we are around people who are troubled or who are going to cause us trouble, they often are in their own pain. Now, when someone is abusing us, it's not a really good time to just have empathy because we have to protect ourselves. But we also, I mean, knowing ourselves is also knowing that we are also not so great in many ways. Um, we have the capacity to do bad things too. And I think we need to know that, because if we're going to have some equality and some empathy, we we need to feel that we're not better than other people. And so what happened, when I told you about that boy that I was working with, what happened to me is that I felt like I was a terrible person. I felt like as bad as him. I didn't feel better than him. And it was, oh my God, I have that too. And that also is a very powerful place to come from, because it's like you don't have to run away and just blame other people like they're bad and I'm not. It's not really like that.
Yes, I understand what you say. On the other hand, we also have to protect our energy. We cannot allow all people to be close to us, right? Like to be in our inner circle to communicate. Because when we communicate with negative people, um, we just get drawn to energy. Like negative people, they just draw your energy, and you cannot achieve your goals because you are not at the right frequency. Yeah,
I
because
yeah. No, I agree with you. What I hear you saying is we can't let it's better not to let people who are very negative um, affect us or control us. On the other hand, there are many people, let's say, who have a lot of power over us, and we have to find a way to defend ourselves. So it's not, we can't afford to be victims to these people and to be too trusting, but we also have to find a way to figure out how to change things, and that is, again, it's in business and it's politically, and even in business there are politics. So um, I agree with you in the sense that we can't afford to let people drain us. We have to be protected, and that is the point of my book, that we have to know our vulnerability, our deepest feelings, but then we have to find ways to protect them. So we have some options about how to act. So because I agree with you that that logic is not enough and that emotions are very much stronger than thoughts. And if, I think emotions drive us much more than we know, so that it's really important to understand what emotions are are pushing us so that we can make different choices. Because if we act like we're just logical, but we are pushed by emotions, then it's it's false. It's just not the case. It's not true.
yes, just to resume what we discussed, I think, like from my experience, that we have to listen our intuition. Yes, and when it comes, that feeling that something is wrong, don't just dismiss it, but study it. Just give it time and see like what can be the reason, and don't make any decision if your intuition is not good with that. Don't make decisions only from head and from logic, from knowing. Always listen to your gut, to your feelings, and it will be always in a wisdom, in a voice. Maybe it is very tiny voice, but it is always, you will listen to it. And when you start listening, you will know this voice, and this voice will guide you all the time. And intuition never can be wrong, because intuition, we don't even know what exactly is intuition. It is like uh, our mental faculty, which connects to frequency, which cannot be physically, like with eyes, with ears, we don't see that, like the same way as we don't see the waves like Wi-Fi, how it works, but it is there. And if we learn to trust our intuition, it will be very helpful. Yes, we will not do many mistakes which we would regret later. This is, I know for sure from my experience. So what about you, Carol?
Um, I agree with you. I think intuition is very powerful. It's kind of the source of creativity. And also it is the source of the potential to do new things and evolve in new ways. I think the point of this here is that the more we know ourselves, the more we can know all of ourselves, the more we can really trust our intuition. Because people who are closed may use the word intuition, but but they really are not open to all of the things inside of them. So they're kind of, it's a strange word. I agree with you that intuition is key, but I also feel that if we don't know the deepest parts of ourselves, we're not going to be as open to be reliable and, to trust that, which I agree with you is important.
Mhm. Yes, yes, 100%. Yes, thank you so much, Carol. I really liked our conversation. It was a little bit philosophical, but yes, I really enjoyed it. And I would like to meet you again and speak about different parts. When we say all parts, like what means those all parts? So maybe we can go more deeper about each of part, knowing ourselves. And also, I would like you to share maybe some techniques how we can know ourselves and all the parts. I think that it will be very good episode after this one, which we had
Okay,
today.
sure.
Yes, thank you so much. So see you again soon.
Okay, ciao.
Ciao.